Welcome back to another video. I'm Darryl Syms, and in today's lesson I'm going to be showing you how easy it is to draw the modes from your familiar pentatonic scale. Most guitar players out there don't actually fully realize how similar the pentatonic scale is to the modes. In actual fact, it's 5/7 of the way there, since we know that the pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale and your modes are heptatonic, meaning that there's 7 notes in the scale. I don't have 7 fingers, so let's put that into practice. For example, if we play our minor pentatonic scale in the key of D, and as you go through that, I want you to actually be mindful of the intervals that you're playing in order to fully understand what we're going to talk about. So we have 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, and then we repeat. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. Now based on this one shape, we can draw up 3 of your modes, since 3 are minor, 3 are major, and then you've got that one odd diminished mode. And the 3 minor modes that we're going to draw out of this shape is Aeolian, Dorian, and Phrygian. So let's check that out. To produce Aeolian, we need to add 2 intervals to this 5-note scale. And that's your major 2 and your minor 6. And hopefully you can see the similarities between the two shapes, the minor pentatonic and your minor scale or Aeolian. And we can also form a chord using this knowledge that highlights the Aeolian mode. One that I like to use is this one. So I'm taking that minor 6 there, as well as the minor 3rd and the minor 7, of course, to really bring out that Aeolian sound, because only Aeolian is going to work over that chord. Now let's try the same thing with another minor mode. Let's choose Dorian. So once again, we'll play our pentatonic blocks so that we can compare the two. Now for Dorian, we're going to add the major 2, again, just like Aeolian, and the major 6. So there's only a 1-note difference between Aeolian and Dorian, which is that minor to major 6 there. And if we wanted to play a chord that brings out that Dorian flavor and Dorian sound, we could do the same kind of approach that we did with Aeolian, except rather than play that minor 6 there, we play the major 6. Since that's the only difference between the two modes, so we want to highlight that major 6 to make it obvious and clear that we are playing Dorian. And once again, just before you get too carried away with this, make sure you really understand the difference between your minor pentatonic scale and your Dorian mode, or Aeolian, or Phrygian, or whatever the mode is that you're playing. Make sure you understand this intervallically, and that you can also visualize these intervals so that you can easily use them in a practical situation. Now let's explore our very last minor mode, which is Phrygian. Once again, we'll start from our blank clean slate, which would be your D minor pentatonic scale. Now we're going to add those Phrygian notes, which would be, we've got a minor 2 here, a very dark sounding note. We also have a minor 6. Okay, so all together. And as you could hear at the end there, I included a chord which really highlights that Phrygian sound. And to do that, most importantly, you have to highlight that minor 2nd there. That's the dark tone of Phrygian. And then I've also included that minor 6 and the 4. So there you have all of the minor modes. Let's just take a moment to realize the differences between these modes. So they all, of course, have those minor pentatonic notes in common. And then Aeolian also has your major 2 and your minor 6. Dorian has your major 2 and your major 6. and Phrygian has your minor 2 and your minor 6. So remember that for when you're trying to build these modes yourself based on the pentatonic shape that you're already familiar with. Now let's move on to your major modes. So we're going to take the familiar major pentatonic shape here in D, and we're going to, just like we did with minor, we're going to broaden on that and expand with the 2 extra modal notes for each of the major modes. Now before we do that, let's just take note of the intervals we already have. So we have root, major 2, major 3, perfect 5, major 6, and then we repeat that onto the next octave. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, 2. Now let's begin by exploring our Ionian mode. Now as we ascend the scale, we're going to add the perfect 4 and the major 7. There it is again. And hopefully you can quite easily see how these notes fit in with your basic major pentatonic shape. Now, as we did with the minor modes, we're going to find a chord which really highlights that Ionian sound. So we're going to want to include, obviously, the root. I would opt for the 5 and the major 9 here. And if you have room, of course, the third too. But you have to rearrange your fingers to produce something different. I think this is good enough. I like the sound of this chord. And to me, that really highlights that Ionian sound. Let's now check out Lydian. For Lydian, we're going to add the sharp 4 and the major 7, just like Ionian. So the only difference between Ionian and Lydian is that sharp 4. So we're definitely going to want to include that in the chord at the end. So that's the chord that I would opt for over this Lydian mode. I'm highlighting the sharp 4, of course, which is the key tone here. That's the only difference between Ionian and Lydian. And then I'm also including the 5 and the major 9 there. And now the very last mode that we're going to check out is Mixolydian. And to produce Mixolydian, we're going to play the perfect 4 there, which is the same as Ionian, and then minor 7, which is the key tone that differentiates this mode from the other 2. So again, we're going to want to include that in our chord at the end. Moving on. And the chord that I would play behind this mode to really bring out that Mixolydian sound would be a straight dominant chord, or perhaps a dominant 13. That really brings out that Mixolydian sound. And there you go. We've just simply added 2 notes onto your basic pentatonic shapes to create your modal sounds. So if ever you're required to play modally, or you want to create some modal sounding music, then all you need to do is include these extra 2 tones which highlight whichever mode you're going for. Now once again, let's just take note of the 3 key differences between your major modes. So apart from the skeleton, the pentatonic skeleton, which would have your 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 intervals, for Ionian, we're going to add your perfect 4 and your major 7. For Lydian, we're going to add your sharp 4 and your major 7. And for Mixolydian, you're going to add your perfect 4 and your minor 7. So make sure you try and retain this information, because it's important that you understand the key differences, or the most obvious differences between the modes, particularly if you want to play chords that highlight the mode that you're playing over, or you want to follow the chords that you're playing over in your lead playing. So with this in mind, you should now be relatively confident of finding your major and minor modal notes based on your simple pentatonic scale. We've of course explored it in one position, but it's in your hands to explore beyond this, and perhaps you could use your 5 pentatonic shapes and find these intervals around that. If you want some extra assistance in that and you're looking to study the modes in more detail along with a bunch of other essential music theory concepts, then I strongly recommend that you check out my Essential Theory for Guitarists course, which is linked in the description below. And currently until the new year, it's 30% off, so make sure you take advantage of that before it goes back to its full price. I hope you enjoyed and took something away from this video. If you have any questions or comments, then please let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you in the next video.